Hi, my name is Muhammad Haikal. This slide explain the issue of digital ambiguity in modern contract law. First, under the framework section, Malaysia introduced the Electronic Commerce Act 2006 and the Digital Signature Act 1997 to support electronic transaction and online agreement. This law recognizes digital communication as legally valid. However, there is still a structural gap. Section 4 follows the postal rule, where acceptance becomes complete once the message is sent. In today's instance, digital communication, it's become difficult to determine the exact moment of dispatch and receipt. This creates legal uncertainty in online contracts. Lastly, there is an exclusion warning. Certain important documents, such as deeds, are excluded from digital frameworks to avoid fraud and manipulation. As a result, there is still a limitation in electronic attestation and authentication. Overall, this slide shows that although digital contract law exists, modern technology continues to challenge traditional legal principles. Next, this slide discusses the tension between civil law principle and Sharia principle in Islamic finance contracts. On the left side, the civil law pillar focuses on strict statutory requirement, guarantee obligation, and procedural enforcement. Civil court mainly emphasizes legal certainty and contractual execution. On the right side, the Sharia pillar emphasizes concepts such as redha, which means genuine concerns, together with fairness, ethics, and compliance supervised by Sharia supervisory boards. The main friction points occurs when civil court enforce Islamic finance contracts using conventional legal principles without fully considering the flexibility and ethical dimension of Sharia law. As a result, this creates a gap in legal pluralism, where two different legal approaches may conflict with one another. In conclusion, this slide highlights the challenge of balancing civil law enforcement with Sharia value in modern Islamic finance. And the last one, this slide explains the legal mechanisms used to overcome contractual gaps and unfair outcomes. The first concept is the doctrine of substantial performance. Under this doctrine, court may recognize partial but significant completion of contractual obligation. This prevents harsh consequences when one party has substantially fulfilled the contract, even if performance is not perfectly complete. The second concept is implicit terms. These are terms automatically inserted by law into contract, even if they are not expressly written. For example, under the Sale of Goods Act 1957, certain protections ensure fairness and commercial efficiency. These implicit terms function as legal safety nets to protect parties and maintain fairness in commercial transactions. Overall, this slide demonstrates how court and statutes help fill legal gaps to ensure justice, fairness, and practical business effectiveness.
Hello everyone, my name is Raihana, and now that we understand how a contract is built, we must address the reality of what happens when a promise is broken. This is where the remedy matrix comes in. So in Malaysian law, remedies are generally divided into two pillars, which are the legal remedies and equitable remedies. So let's start with the legal remedies, which are statutory and primarily focused on money. The most common form is general damages under Section 74 of the Contract Act. Think of this as the law's way of balancing the scales. It compensates the injured party for a predictable natural losses that occur because of the breach. We also have the liquidated damages under Section 75. This is a pre-agreed sum written into the contract itself. It saves everyone time because you don't have to prove the exact amount of your loss in court. So you simply enforce the amount both parties agreed upon earlier. However, sometimes money is not enough to fix the problem, so this is where equitable remedies, which are discretionary and action based, step in. One major tool is specific performance under the Specific Relief Act 1950. This is a court order forcing the parties to actually fulfill their promise, such as compelling the transfer of a unique piece of land. Then we also have injunctions, which are used to halt a breach or maintain the status quo. And finally, there is a consummary under Section 71, which ensures a fair payment for partial work already completed, preventing one party getting a free work at the expense of another. So, moving on to our next slide, we need to talk about the math of a legal battle, which is measuring the loss. Winning a case does not mean you get an unlimited payout. The court follows two very strict rules to keep things fair, which the first rule is from the case of Hadley and Baxendale. This rule dictates that damages must be reasonably foreseeable to both parties at the time they made the agreement. If a loss is too remote or totally unexpected, then the court will not make the other person pay for it, as we want to compensate for the breach and not punish the person for every single butterfly effect that follows. The second and perhaps most important part of my section uh, would be the duty to mitigate, famously highlighted in the case of Gabatasan timber. As you can see on the mitigation value curve in the slide, a plaintiff cannot simply sit back and watch their losses pile up like a mounting debt. If you are the injured party, you have a legal duty to take reasonable steps to minimize your loss. And if you fail to mitigate, meaning you did not try to find a new supplier to fix the issue, then the court will label that extra financial hit as an irrecoverable loss. You then will only be awarded for the reasonable mitigation portion, and essentially the law helps those who help themselves. So, in summary, the goal of damages is not just to hand out money, it's to return the injured party to the position they would have been in had the contract been performed correctly. So, that's it for my part. Thank you.
Hi, good day everyone. I'm Lau Yuk Lian. My part focuses on what happens when a contract is breached and money alone cannot fix the situation. This is where equitable remedies come in under the Specific Relief Act 1950. The first remedy is specific performance. Under Section 11 of the Act, a court can order a party to actually carry out their contractual obligation rather than simply paying damages. This is most commonly used in land transaction because land is unique and cannot simply be replaced with money. This was confirmed in City Investment Sendirian Berhad and Koperasi Serbaguna Cupex Terbatas 1985, where the court granted specific performance because no monetary payment could substitute for the specific land in question. However, specific performance is not available for personal service contract for agreement requiring continuous court supervision. The second remedy is an injunction, a court order directing a party to stop breaching their contractual obligation in Pertama Cabaret Nightclub Sendirian Berhad and Romantang 1981. The court granted an injunction to prevent a performer from appearing at the place while still contractually bound to the plaintiff. Under Section 40, where a party clearly intends to breach their obligation, the innocent party may pursue rescission, effectively unwinding the contract. If partial performance has already occurred, a claim for quantum merit under Section 71 allows fair compensation for work already done to prevent unjust enrichment. How do Malaysian court actually interpret contract in practice? Malaysian court take a balanced approach They do not read a contract in a purely literal way, nor do they ignore the written words. Instead, they examine both the literal text of the contract and the commercial context surrounding it. Looking at negotiation, industry custom, and the party conduct, this approach is guided by Section 30 of the Contract Act 1950, which requires certainty, agreement to which uncertain meanings are void. So ambiguity, when ambiguity arises, court use contextual interpretation to give effect to what the party actually intended. In commercial agreement, courts also give primacy to what a reasonable business person would understand the contract to mean, ensuring that the law remains practical and commercially sensible. Bringing everything together, the fundamental elements of a contract offer acceptance, consideration, and free consent, create a theoretical premise, but it is only through a remedial framework, damages under Section 74, specific performance injunction, and quantum merit, that this promise becomes a practical and foreseeable obligation. The essential elements alone are not enough. Malaysia contract law derives its true strength from the combination of formation rules and remedial mechanism working together. While challenges remain in areas like electronic contracts and Sharia compliance, the overall framework continues to adapt, ensuring that whoever enter a voluntary obligation under Malaysian law will be held accountable to it. Okay, that's all for our group presentation. Thank you. Goodbye.